He ran. Sand and stone tore at his feet. The sun burned from above, but it was not the heat that drove him. It was the weight of what had just happened. Musa, the man once raised as royalty in Pharaoh's palace, was now a fugitive, hunted for a crime he did not mean to commit. He had intervened in a fight between a cruel Egyptian and a helpless Israelite. In trying to help, he had struck the man, and the blow had ended a life. Now Pharaoh wanted him dead. His own people questioned him. His palace life was over. So he ran. Alone, exhausted, with no food or water, he crossed miles of desert, leaving everything behind: his title, his family, his past. Where was he going? But Allah was guiding him. He did not yet know it, but his journey was not one of escape. It was one of purpose. A woman he had never met was waiting for him, not by name, not by intention, but by divine decree. And through her, Allah would begin the next chapter of his mission. From which country are you watching this video? Let us know in the comments and subscribe if your heart finds peace in the stories of the prophets. After days of hunger and hardship, he reached the land of Madian. It was a quiet place, distant from the noise and cruelty of Egypt. Here, he approached a well surrounded by men, rough shepherds, who wrestled for a chance to water their flocks. The scene was chaotic, but what caught his attention was not the noise of the crowd. It was the silence of two women standing to the side, holding back their sheep. They were clearly waiting. They were not weak, but they did not push forward like the men. They waited with patience and dignity, even though the sun blazed and their animals grew restless. Musa, still tired and thirsty himself, approached them. He asked a simple question, sincere and respectful. "What is the matter with you?" And their answer was brief, modest, but deeply telling. "We do not water our flock until the shepherds move away, and our father is an old man." They were not just shepherdesses. They were daughters, fulfilling the duty of a father who could no longer carry the burden. They came not for profit or pride, but out of love and responsibility. And they would rather wait in hardship than compromise their modesty among aggressive men. In that moment, Musa saw something he had not seen in Pharaoh's palace. He saw sincerity, he saw family, he saw honor. He did not ask them for anything. He did not hesitate. Though he was drained to the bone, his sense of justice and mercy moved him into action. He stepped forward, walked through the crowd, and with strength that Allah had preserved in him, he lifted the stone covering the well. It was a feat the men usually did together, several at once. But Musa did it alone. He drew water, filled the troughs, and watered their sheep. And when it was done, he did not wait for thanks. He walked away and sat beneath the shade of a tree, whispering the aching truth of his heart to Allah. "My Lord, I am in need of whatever good you send to me. A man of strength, reduced to desperation, but still kind, still righteous, still patient, and still guided." The two women returned home far earlier than usual. Their father, Prophet Shu'aib, according to most scholars, was surprised. Their routine was slow, and the well was not a place of kindness. But today, something had changed. One of the daughters, Safoora, shared what had happened. She described the man who helped them, not with flattery, but with honesty. He was strong. He was respectful. He walked away expecting nothing. He asked nothing of them, not even their names. And something in her voice hinted at admiration. Quiet, respectful, dignified admiration for a stranger whose character glowed like a light in a world of darkness. The father knew. Righteous men can recognize righteous men, and this one had the signs. He told one of the daughters to return to the well and invite him home. He wanted to know who this man was. He wanted to repay his kindness. And perhaps, though they did not know it yet, Allah was setting something greater into motion. A connection that would reshape the future. A bond that would be built not on romance or wealth, but on faith, trust, and divine timing. She approached him carefully. Not with boldness, not with hesitation, but with something that balanced both modesty. The kind of modesty that is noble, not timid, dignified, not afraid. The Quran paints the picture with a single phrase that carries such beauty and power. Then one of the two women came to him, walking with modesty. This was Safoora, a young woman raised in the house of a prophet. She was not taught to flirt or flaunt, but to carry herself with humility, self-respect, and faith. And that is exactly what Musa saw. No extravagance, no demand, just the quiet presence of a woman who lived by her values. She said, "My father is inviting you, so that he may reward you for having watered our flock." Her words were simple, but even in her speech there was adab, manners. She did not praise him with excessive compliments. She did not say, "You are so strong," or "You are a hero." She kept her words clear and appropriate. And this was the very essence of the character of a believing woman. She spoke with clarity, and she spoke with dignity. Musa, already weary and hungry, could have asked for food. He could have questioned her. He could have doubted the safety of following a stranger, but he didn't. Because something about the way she carried herself told him everything he needed to know. She wasn't playing tricks. She wasn't using flowery speech. She was being genuine. And her genuineness was rooted in the faith she had been taught by her father Shuaib, a prophet of Allah, a man of wisdom, justice and kindness. As they began the journey to her home, Musa noticed something. The wind was shifting. It tugged at her clothes, and though she was covered and modest, he did not want even the possibility that he would see what was not meant to be seen. So he slowed his steps and told her with sincere adab, "You walk behind me and guide me from there." Safoora obeyed without question. She did not argue or feel insulted. She understood this was not about control or power. It was about respect for herself and for him. This was a man unlike any other, a man who, even in exhaustion and need, guarded his eyes, his intentions, and his heart. A man who respected the boundaries of modesty, even when no one else was watching. In those few steps between the well and the home of her father, a connection was built that had nothing to do with touch or conversation. It was a connection rooted in mutual respect, in piety, in quiet admiration. And though neither of them said anything romantic, the foundation for a blessed union was already being laid by the one who writes all stories. When they arrived, Musa entered a house unlike any he had known. Gone were the walls of Pharaoh's palace, with its luxury, its pride, and its corruption. This was a house of peace, a house of worship. A home where faith was not just spoken, but lived. Prophet Shuaib, elderly and wise, listened as Musa recounted his story not with arrogance or self-pity, but with honesty. He told him about Egypt, about the incident with the man he struck, about the fear that gripped him, and the long, desperate journey that brought him to this land. Shuaib listened, his face calm, his heart discerning. When Musa finished, he said words that must have lifted a massive weight from the young man's heart. "Do not fear, you have escaped from the wrongdoing people." These words were more than comfort. They were a statement of truth. You are safe now. You are not in the land of tyrants. Here there is justice. Here there is sanctuary. Here you are seen not as a fugitive, but as a man of courage, dignity, and trust. Safoora, seated nearby, said nothing, but she watched, she listened, and what she saw only deepened what she already felt. This was a man who did not seek attention, yet deserved honor. A man who did not speak too much, yet every word carried weight. A man who did not demand anything, yet was worthy of everything. Later, in a quiet moment, she spoke to her father. She said only a few words, but they were enough. "O my father, hire him. Truly, the best of men you can hire is the strong and trustworthy." She did not say, "I want to marry him." She did not speak with emotion or desperation. She simply gave her opinion with intelligence and restraint. And she based it on two qualities: strength and trustworthiness. Not beauty, not wealth, not flattery. Strength and trust. These were the two qualities she had observed at the well and on the walk to their home. Her father, again, recognized the wisdom in her words. And here we see the incredible balance of this family. The daughter speaks with honesty, the father listens with respect. The man is judged not by his past or his poverty, but by his character. So Shuaib approached Musa with a proposal that would change the direction of both their lives. He said, "I wish to marry you to one of these two daughters of mine on the condition that you serve me for 8 years. And if you complete 10, it will be from your own willingness, and I do not wish to make it difficult for you. You will find me, if Allah wills, among the righteous." This was not a transaction. It was not a purchase. It was a respectful agreement. A way for Musa to have a home, a wife, and a purpose, while maintaining his dignity. And Musa, in turn, responded not with pride or hesitation, but with complete sincerity. He accepted the proposal, not because he was desperate, not because he was seeking reward, but because he saw in this household the very values he had longed for all his life: faith, honesty, and love grounded in truth. And so, Safoora and Musa became husband and wife, not through lavish ceremonies or long courtships, but through purity of character, mutual respect, and the quiet orchestration of Allah's plan. Their marriage was the kind that many today long for but few understand. It was not built on external attraction or momentary feelings. It was built on a solid foundation of values. Both had suffered. Both had been tested. But both had held on to their faith, and now Allah was bringing them together in peace. She became his companion in life, not just in comfort but in patience and sacrifice. He became her protector, not just in strength but in loyalty and kindness. Together, they would live out a decade of simplicity, away from the world's noise. A decade that would prepare Musa for the greatest mission a man could ever carry. But in that moment, they were just husband and wife, living under the roof of a prophet, building a life from the ground up, trusting that what they could not see, Allah already had planned. And none of this would have happened, none of it, if a woman named Safoora had not walked modestly toward a man who showed kindness without reward. If she had not spoken with dignity, if her father had not listened with wisdom, and if character had not been valued over everything else. The days passed quietly, and with them, the rhythms of a new life began to form. What began with an offer between two righteous men had now become a home, a new beginning. A marriage that was less about formality and more about fitra, natural harmony between two believers whose hearts aligned with the will of Allah. Musa took up the task he had agreed to, working under Shuaib as a shepherd. It was humble work, far removed from the opulence of Pharaoh's courts, but it was honest, it was peaceful, it was grounding. He would wake early, tend to the animals, lead them to pasture, guard them from harm, and return only after they had drunk their fill. His days were filled with quiet, and in that quiet his soul was healing. And Safoora, now his wife, adjusted to her new role with grace. She was not merely a woman of the home, she was a woman of insight, patience, and inner strength. She did not overwhelm Musa with words, she did not crowd him with needs, she gave him space when he needed reflection, and presence when he needed companionship. She was not the kind of woman who sought attention, she sought sincerity. In her, Musa found something he had never truly known before: sakina, tranquility of the heart. This wasn't the kind of love that burns quickly and dies out. It was the love that builds slowly, like a tree growing from deep roots. And each day as they lived, worked, and prayed side by side, that tree grew stronger. There were no palaces here, no gold, no music, no servants. Just a simple home in a righteous household, surrounded by nature, filled with the remembrance of Allah. And in that space, they began to understand the meaning of barakah, the blessing that multiplies silently, invisibly, but powerfully. Musa fulfilled his promise with diligence. 8 years of service passed, and the time came to choose. Would he stay 2 more or depart? But there was no hesitation in his heart. He chose to complete 10, not because he was bound, not because he was asked, but because he wanted to give more. Because loyalty was in his nature. Because he had come to love not just his wife, but her family, her father, and the life they had built together. And it was in these years, quiet, faithful, and steady, that Allah was preparing Musa for what was to come. Because you see, prophethood is not granted in a moment. It is shaped in silence, in suffering, in patience, and in obedience to Allah when no one is watching. These were not wasted years. They were training years. Years in which his body grew stronger, his soul more grounded, his heart more attuned to divine wisdom. Years in which Safoora, unknowingly, was becoming the woman who would support a prophet. A woman who could endure with grace what others would collapse under. A woman of quiet strength. And during these years, something beautiful grew between them, a sense of mutual dependence. Not dependence in the worldly sense, but in the emotional and spiritual sense. She depended on his protection, his provision, and his leadership. He depended on her peace, her sincerity, and her steadfastness. They lived far from the noise of Egypt, but they were not forgotten, for Allah never forgets his righteous servants. As the 10th year drew to a close, a new feeling began to stir in Musa's heart. A call, not a voice, not a vision, but a pull deep and undeniable. It was time to move, time to return to Egypt. Not in fear, as he had once left, but with a mission yet to be revealed. He informed Safoora, and true to her character, she did not protest, she did not cry, she did not say, "But we have built a life here." She simply prepared to go. Her strength was not in loud declarations, it was in her submission to Allah's plan. And so, they set out. She traveled beside him, across the open lands, with her children and whatever belongings they could carry. The journey was not luxurious, it was not easy. The desert offered no comfort. The nights were cold, the days hot, and the terrain unkind, but still she walked beside him. And then came a night unlike any other, a night that would split history into 2 halves before and after. As they camped near Mount Tur, Musa saw a fire in the distance, a glowing light, flickering in the dark. He told his family, "Stay here. I have seen a fire. Perhaps I can bring you some of it, or find someone to guide us." Safoora stayed behind with the children, watching him disappear into the night, unaware that this fire was not fire at all but light from the divine. At that sacred mountain, Musa would experience what no man alive had ever experienced before. A voice, clear, commanding, majestic, called to him, "O Musa, indeed I am your Lord. So remove your sandals, you are in the sacred valley of Tuwa." There, Allah gave him the most powerful mission on earth, to go back to Pharaoh, to deliver the message, to liberate the people, to stand alone against tyranny with the backing of the one who needs no army. When he returned to his family, Musa was no longer the man who had left. He was now a prophet, a messenger, chosen. And Safoora, may Allah be pleased with her, was the first to witness the glow of prophethood in his eyes. She did not ask for details, she did not panic. She knew somehow that everything was about to change, but her faith did not shake. Because when you live your life with Allah at the center, change does not terrify you, it strengthens you. They gathered their belongings and continued the journey, but the path ahead was now filled with purpose. Musa would face Pharaoh, he would perform miracles, he would lead a nation, he would stand in the face of unimaginable power. But he would not do it alone, because behind him, at every step, was a woman who had walked with modesty, spoken with wisdom, waited with patience, and now walked forward with unshakable trust in the decree of Allah. She was not a prophet. She was not given miracles. She was not given scriptures. But she was given something just as noble, the honor of standing beside one. The fire that Musa had seen was unlike anything on earth. It danced upon the mountain, yet gave no smoke. It burned, yet gave no heat. It called to him not with flames, but with revelation. There, on the sacred ground of Tuwa, Allah, the Most High, addressed Musa directly. It was not a dream. It was not a vision. It was real. His ears heard what few humans would ever hear. Indeed, I am Allah. There is no deity except me. So worship me and establish prayer for my remembrance. It was in that moment that a shepherd became a prophet, a fugitive became a messenger, a husband and father now carried the weight of a nation's deliverance. And the first heart to which he returned was hers, Safoora, his wife, the woman who had walked beside him in silence and in faith, the woman who had shared his life before he was chosen and who would now share the burden of revelation. He returned from the mountain not just with a message, but with a mission. The task was terrifying. To go back to Egypt, to speak truth to Pharaoh, the man he had once called family, the tyrant who now ruled with cruelty unmatched. To demand, not beg for the freedom of the oppressed. To stand in front of the most powerful man on earth and say, "Indeed, I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds." And yet, when he shared what had happened, Safoora did not ask, "Why you?" She did not say, "What about us?" She did not try to pull him back. She did not panic or protest. Her face did not break with fear, because her heart was already trained to submit to Allah's decree. She had no title, she held no staff. But in that tent, in that moment, she became part of a story that would shape the Ummah forever. Their journey continued, not one of comfort, but of sacrifice. Musa would go to Egypt with his brother Harun, as Allah commanded. But behind him stood the woman who had walked every desert step beside him, who had seen the fear in his eyes and the light that replaced it. Safoora's name would not be echoed in the declarations before Pharaoh. Her hands would not split the sea. Her voice would not call the people to rise. But her presence, quiet, constant, and faithful, was as essential as the miracles. Because every man who walks into destiny does so on the strength of those who believe in him when no one else does. She was the first to believe in him as a prophet, the first to listen to his fears, the first to witness the moment he lowered his head to the command of the Almighty. While Musa faced the court of Pharaoh and delivered Allah's commands with unwavering courage, it was Safoora who held the home together. It was she who raised their children with gentleness and tawhid. It was she who endured the uncertainty, the danger, and the long nights with sabr so profound that it is woven into the legacy of the righteous, even if not spoken from the minbar. We often speak of the miracles, the staff turning into a serpent, the hand that shone with divine light, the waters of the Red Sea parting for the believers and crashing down upon the army of Pharaoh. But behind these divine signs stood homes built on quiet strength. Women like Safoora, who never demanded spotlight, who never sought recognition, yet without whom the mission of the prophets would not be complete. There is something holy in a wife's silence when it is full of faith, in her patience when the road is uncertain, in her loyalty when the world is falling apart. That kind of devotion does not make headlines, but it moves mountains in the sight of Allah. And so, when Musa returned again and again from his encounters with Pharaoh, sometimes weary, sometimes rejected, sometimes in awe of the signs Allah had given him, it was Safoora's presence that steadied him. She was his stillness when the world raged. We are not told many details about her life after Musa's prophethood. That silence is not emptiness, it is honor, because her role was not to lead armies or call the people. Her role was to be the home to which a prophet returned, the mother who would raise children in the shadow of revelation, the believer whose strength held quietly beneath the surface of a history dominated by men. And in that silence is a powerful truth. that Allah honors those who are sincere, even if the world forgets their names. She is not mentioned in the Quran by name, but she is remembered by Allah, and that is the only remembrance that matters. For it was her modest walk that brought Musa to her father, her brief, wise words that led to his employment, her character that impressed him before any marriage proposal, and her presence that gave him a home in his exile. Without Safoora, there would still have been Musa, but with Safoora, there was healing. With Safoora, there was love grounded in faith. With Safoora, there was the type of companionship that Allah himself describes as a garment for you, and you are a garment for them. When we talk of legacies, we must remember hers. The legacy of the woman who saw a stranger at a well and recognized something in him. The legacy of the wife who gave without demand. The legacy of the believer who, though not given prophethood, was chosen to be beside one. In a world obsessed with noise and fame, her life whispers a deeper truth, that real power does not always roar. Sometimes it walks quietly, speaks gently, waits patiently, and loves with pure intention. This was Safoora. May Allah be pleased with her, the woman who changed the destiny of Prophet Musa because she lived with integrity, walked with modesty, spoke with wisdom, and loved for the sake of Allah. A woman forgotten by many but never forgotten by the Lord of the worlds.